Hi everyone, this is Shelby at the corner. Always corner. In my last video, we were able to do an overview concerning the book of Romans, chapter 7, verse 1 to 10. This morning, I will be doing the verse 11 to verse 23. And I could recall that in chapter 7, verse 1 to 10, talks about uh, how Paul felt, and it make us to see that sin is different entirely from the law, but that sin takes occasion, that is, sin uses the law, like sin use the law to activate its full nature in us. I don't want this video to be long. I want it to be concise, short. So let's get down to business. Romans 7, verse 11 to 25 or 23, if time permits. Verse 11 says, "For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it slew me." We can see the same thing in verse 8. He said, "But sin, taking occasion by the commandment, wrought in me all manner of consequences, for without the law, sin was death." So what is Paul saying? This is what Paul is simply saying. Because we have this sin nature in us, and this sin nature that is in us is what we inherit from our forefather, which has to do with the Adamic nature. And because the sin nature is in us, like is in us, is not active. Whenever the sin nature see the law, then the sin nature becomes active. That is why if you said, maybe you instruct a child that don't write on this wall, the sin nature in that child will be activated, that if you write it, what will happen? So before you know it, the child will now write on the wall, like wanted to see what you would do. No, it is the sin nature that the law has because of the law, it has been activated in the child. Like it was dormant before, but because of the law don't write, now the child, the nature is now activated. Okay, let me kukuma commit the sin, let me kukuma write. So this is what Paul is saying in verse 8 and 11. That verse 8, he said, "For without the law, sin was dead." So which means the sin nature was nominal, it was inactive without the law. But the moment the sin see the law, sin nature will be activated. So sin uses the law to satisfy, to pleases himself. Like he wanted, the sin nature is now pointing an excuse to the law, that it is because of the law that I do this, that I do that. That is what Paul is now saying here, that the law activates, give the sin nature full power to operate, to come alive in us. This is what Paul is saying in verse 11. So verse 12, we have, "For the law is holy, and the commandment holy, and just and good." So verse 12 is now talking about the characteristics of the sin, the law rather, that the law is holy, the law is just, and the law is good. And because the sin nature cannot keep the law, can't keep the law, he can't stand the law. So he uses the law as an excuse to gratify